is it really good in general, or is it really good for wrestling? Like we
That
put
is
Roman Reigns
true.
next to put Roman Reigns next to Meryl Streep. Is he still a good actor? Like Roman Reigns and Robert De Niro, is he still a good actor? Like, he's fine, I guess, but that's actually really good, and this is just good for wrestling, so to speak.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Took Flourish, and today I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by Jimmy Mcaran from True Hill Heat. So, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, if we take this back, where do you discover wrestling as an overall fan?
Boy, late '90s, maybe not late, maybe mid '90s. I remember being at a friend's house and seeing the Undertaker and being scared out of my mind.
Ooh.
Um, yeah. Then a little later on, Stone Cold came on, and I was hooked. I was like, whatever this is, I need to watch more of this because I love all of this. This is great.
You
Been a
talked
fan
about, oh,
almost
sorry.
ever since.
You
Sorry.
talked you talked about the being scared of the Undertaker when you first saw him. So was that sort of an initial like, okay, maybe this isn't for me if you were scared of the Undertaker sort of thing?
I was such a skittish kid. So I can't even say that. I was scared of Thriller. So I'm probably not the right person for that. But once I got over it, I understood what was going on, and I was fine with it.
Mm. So when Stone Cold does come into your life and you're hooked, how do you start consuming wrestling? Are you a tape guy, DVD guy? Are you a I'm watching every week sort of guy?
Every Monday, though not for long because I had a bedtime. So
Yeah.
until 10, maybe 10:30, before mom came in, told me to go to sleep. I watched every second I could, back and forth between that and WCW almost immediately. Good times, really good
Mm.
times.
Mm. So you talked about the sort of the good times of balancing wrestling and stuff and like flipping backwards and forths. Do you remember a moment that maybe you'd said, okay, I'm going to start with Raw for the night, but then you flipped on WCW and you were like, okay, this is cool. I'm going to stick with this for the night, or vice
Oh,
versa.
uh, hmm. I that's a good one. I definitely remember Sting, late '90s. He was the first person to me that felt like a superhero. It
Mm,
felt like something distinct. Like he could have been Batman. No pun intended. Uh,
mm,
so once Sting showed up, I was hooked for whatever WCW is doing the rest of the night.
mm,
Take me
That
away.
makes a lot of sense. So you talked about being hooked with Sting. Why does that? Why did he speak to you? Do you think?
It's so not wrestling. Like
Mm,
there's not if you just watch that segment with no wrestling ring, it's just a bunch of guys in black shirts getting beat up with a guy in the back who came down from the skies. There's nothing about this that's wrestling. This is like a comic book I just read. Like, yeah, more of this, please. I the wrestling stuff came later. I've always been a story guy first,
mm,
and then you kind of appreciate the wrestling later on. When you get a little older. You go, oh, that works. That works.
So you talked about there being a story guy first, which I think is very interesting with what you do as sort of in your own words, as we were talking off camera, as sort of a money maker, being like your movies and TV channel. So where did your love of like movies and that come from first?
Oh, that's really good one. I don't know. That I have not thought about even a little bit. I remember what's the earliest I can remember watching movies and TV shows. Like I was never a Sesame Street guy. I was never like a Barney guy. So it's past that. It's probably like watching with the adults
Mm.
and not quite understanding what was going on, but knowing I enjoyed it. Uh, hmm, that's a good one. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
No, that's cool. So like one thing I am curious to know, like with the wrestling side of it a bit, how and sort of the TVs and movie side, do you cover things that most people might consider their like relaxation and stuff? Like
Mm.
I know what I mean when do you know what I mean when I say
Yeah,
people
I'm
might
with you.
use to
Yeah.
relax? So how do you balance your fandom for both movies and TV and wrestling? But then also like with your work and sort of know I can watch this movie as a fan and not have to think, I've got to take notes. But then this one, I've got to take notes and the same example with wrestling.
Anything that I go to see in a theater, I'm going for me. Like I'm going just so I can sit and watch and enjoy it and never have to think about it after again, or think about it all the time, but never have to talk about it.
Mm,
Uh, Same thing with TV shows, but that's usually if I'm around other people. We're watching a TV show together, then I'm not thinking about, YouTube or anything like that. As far as wrestling goes, True Heel Heat SP3 actually got me back into wrestling. I had stopped for a long time. When did
mm.
Charlotte beat Asuka at WrestleMania?
Mania 34.
That's when I was completely done. I was like, all right, all of
Okay.
this is, I think I've outgrown this. I think I'm over it. I think I'm out.
Had you
And then
watched from
AEW
the
showed up.
90s till that point?
Yeah, like I would say super hardcore fan from let's say 97 to 2006, then like a halfway fan from 2006 to 2014. I'd be the guess 34,
Mm,
somewhere around there. That was done. I had no interest in it. And then SP3 begged me to watch Dynamite because it's a brand new show. I gave it a
mm,
shot, and it was better than what Vince was doing. So
mm.
take it.
So you talked about that stopping watching wrestling, which I think we've all been through. So why was Charlotte beating Asuka the moment you were finally like, okay, this is it, I'm done?
I think it was it's not like we're partners, but we no longer agreed, me and Vince. We no longer
Yeah,
agreed on what works and what doesn't work anymore. I was like, this is such an obvious thing to do. Oscar's such an obvious win. I'm not entirely sure what we're doing. I kind of felt the same way about was Sting and Triple H before that.
yeah. That was like three
I
years
think yeah,
before, I think.
oh wow, yeah. I'm just like I don't understand. We no longer see eye to eye on this thing. I think I'm gonna leave.
Hmm. Yeah, I understand that completely. So when you do step away from wrestling, does your increase of watching movies and TV increase sort of thing, and like your content creation for movies and TV increase?
No, because I think all of that was before I started doing the YouTube thing.
Ah,
So yeah, just same as usual,
okay.
except for an extra 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week.
No, I understand that
Mm.
completely. So you talked about there as well, SP3 begging you to watch Dynamite. So how, first of all, before we get into how you got back into wrestling, how did you connect with SP3, the True Hill Heat crew, etc.?
Well, I know them through SP3. Me and him went to high school together.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, even though we weren't super duper friends the first couple of years, we started going to ROH shows,
mm,
like junior year, senior year, and and everybody becomes friends over wrestling. Once you agree on wrestling, you're friends for life. So
definitely.
yeah, that's how that happened. Then I met all the
So,
rest of the crew through him.
mm, so when you being friends with him in high school, I'm curious to know, like, when you podcast with him, is there anything like, I don't want to put him on blast, but is there anything like different that you go like, that's not the guy that I knew in high school, or yeah, that's the guy in high school that's just come out, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime we start arguing, and he gets, oh, he never gets loud. He'll get, I can't think of a good word for it. He gets pompous
Opinionated?
is too mean a word. Opinionated. Let's go with that. That's a good one. Opinionated. I go, there he is. Because for the most part, he's definitely matured the most out of all of our friends. Like he has kids, he's got a wife and stuff like this. But every once in a while, you go, there's that douchebag 17-year-old. There he is.
Mm. Obviously, so correct me if I'm wrong on this. How much podcasting experience and stuff? How did your movies and TV channel start? First of all, I know this has gone all over the place, and I do apologize for that.
I remember exactly. It was the first Deadpool movie
Ah,
I watched. Being a big comic book fan, I was like, that's the first time I felt like a comic book came to life on screen.
mm,
And I need to talk about this. I just did.
mm.
And just picked up from there.
So when you do start creating stuff on TV, movies and stuff, what was the plan? Like, was you always going to cover that stuff like that, or was it sort of
Mm,
like I'm just going to put my thoughts on anything?
Yeah, I just you have stuff in your head you want to get out. All the writing I do is creative writing. It's not really like reviews and stuff. So I didn't really know what to do with it. This talking I was doing, these thoughts rather I had. I might as well talk them out on YouTube. And then just kind of picked up. People want you to watch this thing, watch that thing. Yo, Game of Thrones. Never heard of this. Let's watch this. Then it just kind of blew up from there.
Mm. You talked about there, which I think is quite cool. Never have heard of Game of Thrones or something like that. So, what is one film or something, or maybe even a wrestling match someone has recommended for you to watch, and you're like, I've never heard of this, but that was very cool actually to watch.
Thrones would be the first one. It's so not up my alley. It's a fantasy show of murder and violence. It just didn't think it would work for me, and I loved it. At least the first 6 seasons or so. As far as the match goes, this is gonna. I hate to be present at the moment, but the first Omega Osprey match. I
Okay.
watched Osprey when he was younger, and he
Mm.
was very much not the wrestler he is now. So I was like, I don't really need to see another Osprey match. I've seen him. He flips. The other guy flips. I've seen him. I don't need to see this again. Then I watched that match. He's so good now. It's shocking. It's jarring. That's one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. I love that match.
Mm. What was your thoughts, just quickly? We were recording this not long after Forbidden Door. What was your thoughts on the second one then?
I really like the second match, but if I can be blasphemous, I know a lot of you guys on a high. If I can be blasphemous, I don't think the second match comes all that close to the first match. Like the second match is a great match. That first match to me is like magic.
It's like God tier almost to you, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like, what is that? Him
Mm.
slamming him through the table, just slowly. Oh, I don't know what that table's made out of, but all tables should be made out of that from now on. The way his
Oh,
head
I
went through,
agree. That table spot looked gross.
right? Oh, loved it.
So you did talk about there about SP3 begging you to watch Dynamite, sort of thing. So how did it then start that he was like, come on my channel and start reviewing Dynamite and helping me review it, sort of thing?
My guess would be that was his plan all along, but
Ah.
a friend of mine, Marcus Cash, we used to live together, so we would watch Dynamite. He's a big wrestling guy too. So then me and him would do the reviews. We would watch them and send them in. SP3 would put them up. Then schedules got hectic, so then it was me and SP3 doing them, and that's the show we know today, where we do it live, and hilarity ensues, or awfulness, depending on who you ask.
I think they're fun shows. I'm not gonna lie. So when it comes to with your movie content and stuff, and also your wrestling content, how would you say the way you review a show is different? So, for example, AEW Dynamite to how you might review, for example, a movie that's just come out as we're recording this, Elemental, for example.
I would say with wrestling, how do I say this without sounding rude? With Dynamite in particular, I find the talent on the show to be amazing. I'm jarred by how good the talent is on that show. However, don't get mad at me. I feel like the writing on it, the booking is subpar, if I'm being nice.
Mm.
So I spend a lot of my time just thinking what they could have done better, what they've done instead, this, that, and third. When I watch a movie, typically it's a great movie because they don't recommend bad movies. So I usually don't have many complaints. So, that was really good. I like the way that was done. This was good. That was good. This was good. With Dynamite, it's like this was good, but where is Ricky Starks? I don't understand why he's not here. Why are we not promoting Forbidden Door? Why are we doing this? Etc. Etc. Etc.
Are you one of those people? Because I've seen this online a little bit, and I think if I'm being totally honest, I'm getting that way. It's almost like, yeah, Collision might be a better show than Dynamite
Yes.
as we're recording at this point.
Yes,
We're
sir.
recording
Yes,
in July, but yeah,
oh, through what, 3 episodes so far? 4 episodes?
as we're recording this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm shocked how good the show is. I prefer almost everything about it. I prefer the wrestling style. I prefer the characters on it. CM Punk, I know he has his issues, and he's earned quite a bit of the flack he's gotten. But I still find him to be the most talented person when it comes to getting things across. He just comes across so naturally charismatic.
Mm.
And Andrade, he had a couple great matches. The one match against Buddy Matthews I thought was splendid. I prefer the commentary. I prefer the way it's paced. I just prefer all of it. Like, if I wasn't watching Dynamite for the show, I wouldn't be watching Dynamite anymore. I'd be watching Collision.
Ah, that's fair. So you talked about there the wrestling you would watch if you didn't have to do it for the show. So what is the one show that say you weren't involved in the wrestling media or the wrestling content creation space at all that you would be like, I don't care what's going on in my week. I'm gonna check this out every week.
Ooh, wait. All right. Well, here's the question: if I pick this show, how committed am I to it? Like, is it like a phone contract? Can I leave at any time?
Oh yeah, you can change your answer at any time.
Okay, then it probably would be SmackDown because I really enjoyed the Bloodline stuff
Hmm.
and LA Knight.
I have a question for you
But
about the bloodline stuff in a second.
ooh, yeah, but I feel like at any moment Roman could disappear for a month, 2 weeks. Then I'm
Oh
just stuck
yeah.
out in the cold. Oh Jesus.
Hmm. That is true. You brought up the bloodline stuff there. As someone that watches movies and TV a lot, which obviously win a lot of awards and stuff, there's been talk on the internet. You know where I'm going with this, I think, about
Yes.
WWE possibly, if everything if the chips align, sort of thing, they get an Emmy. Do you think that will happen, or what do you, if you don't think it will happen? What do you think it will take for wrestling to be in the same space as movies and TV, and maybe be on the same par to win those awards? That was very wordy. I do apologize.
That's a good question. Well, what would it be nominated as? Would it be like a variety show? Would
Mm,
it be a comedy? Like I don't know what it would be. A variety show would be my best guess, kind of like a Saturday Night Live
mm.
deal. Uh I just can't. I can't see it. I'll start there. I can't see it. So a lot of stuff has been really good. Then my question back to who think people think it should happen: is it really good in general, or is it really good for wrestling? Like we
That
put
is
Roman Reigns
true.
next to put Roman Reigns next to Meryl Streep. Is he still a good actor? Like Roman Reigns and Robert De Niro. Is he still a good actor? Like, he's fine, I guess, but that's actually really good. And this is just good for wrestling, so to speak.
That's very true, and I never thought about it like that. So, what is your thoughts, just quickly before we move on? You talked about like being actor, Roman Reigns being a good actor for a wrestler, for the wrestling segments almost. So, what is your
Right.
thoughts on the? We won't use The Rock as the example because he's the big one, but John
Right.
Cena that like transitions into Hollywood sort of thing. How do you think wrestlers could improve? How do you think studios could use wrestlers better so they're not just typecast? Things like that.
Well, I'm shocked how good John Cena was. I saw him in Peacemaker. He's really good on that show. He's got great comedic timing, which is not a shock.
Mm.
He's always had it. Same thing with Batista in those Guardians movies. He's done some other movies
Oh
he's
yeah.
really good in. Yeah, like I'm shocked. Only way you get more parts is people have to keep going, which kind of sucks for wrestling fans. Because more people are gonna leave, but
Yeah.
they're doing what they're doing. I have no problem with it. It's better than getting beat up for 300 days out of the year. I would imagine,
Mm.
just in general.
Mm. So you talked about that, and I think that's very curious to know. What is your favorite like actor turn no yeah wrestler turned actor movie? What is your favorite?
Wrestler turn actor movie.
Yeah,
Mm,
as in like John Cena movie, for example.
yeah. Uh, ooh, it would. It's close. I'm a big superhero guy, so it's close between the Suicide Squad, which John Cena was in, or maybe Guardians 3, which Batista was in. I thought he was really good in it.
Mm.
It's between those two. Am I missing one? Hogan's done some stuff. Rock's done some stuff. Uh, nah, those be it. Those be the two.
I know it gets criticism, but I really liked John Cena in the new Fast film. I thought that was fun.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, if you can buy him and Vin Diesel's brothers, then it all works. Like I enjoy those
Yeah,
movies more than they should.
yeah, I see what you're saying there. There was a moment in that film where you're like, okay, if we was doing like a Jerry Springer or a Jeremy Kyle DNA test. You guys would not pass. But
Yeah, no,
I
not at
like.
all.
Other than that, I really enjoyed it personally.
Yeah, those are really fun. Like those movies are are more fun than if you explain them to me.
Mm.
I would say this is dumb. This is stupid. I'm not watching this. But watching them, I enjoy every bit of it.
Mm. So also, you talked about watching it and loving every bit of it. There, what keeps you motivated as a wrestling like uh, content creator tributor? Currently, what as we record this in July, just because I'm not sure when this is going to air, I'm not going to lie. But
Yeah.
what keeps you sort of like, okay, I enjoy this sort of thing in wrestling, like in wrestling currently.
Ooh, I think it's kind of sad. I think it is the hope. Wrestling finds a really good way of keeping the fish on the line. Like every time I think, you know what, I'm done. I don't really enjoy this as much as I used to. There's always something that hooks me just for a little while longer. Is it LA Knight or Jamie Hayter in AEW? I was loving for until she got hurt. It's just something that keeps me there. And I think as of the moment, that's probably LA Knight until they decide they don't want to do that anymore, which I'm sure is coming. Um, and AEW, what would it be? It might be a Collision, just as in and of itself. I love that show. It's a great show.
What is your thoughts on the Elton John theme song?
I love Elton John. I know it's a bit surprising, but I do love Elton John. So I'm going to give it a win overall. I
I
like
think
it.
and not to talk about myself too much, but I think the funniest part for me was I hadn't seen the announcement on social media or anything like that because I was out of town before the premiere of Collision. And then when I watched it on the Sunday morning, I was like, I'm sorry, what? Do you know what I mean?
It's such an odd choice, but especially for the way Collision feels, it doesn't
Mm.
feel like an Elton John song at all. But I enjoy the song in and of itself.
Oh no, it's definitely fun. So you talked about their wrestling having this way of keeping someone in all the time because there's always something good. If you stopped loving wrestling, or even if you stopped loving movies and TV for whatever reason, would you have to say to we'll use the True Hill Heat and the Dynamite stuff as a example. Would you have to say to SP3, okay, I've got to step away, whether it be for a month, 2 months, I don't know. Or could you keep covering the shows if you didn't love them?
Oh, that's a good one. I hmm, I think let's say I stopped liking wrestling today. I just woke
Mm,
up one day I didn't like it. I would probably continue for another month just out of pure. I feel like I don't want to leave you hanging. You know, you
mm.
expect me to do this. I'll give you a month, but then I'm gone. I
Out
just
of
can't.
loyalty sort of thing.
Yeah, and then I'm out. Find a replacement, whoever. I suppose.
What do you and then you talked about the stuff about like if you stopped loving wrestling, what do you do if you're just burned out? Say you've had to watch a lot of movies for your channel, or you've had to watch a lot of wrestling for True Hill Heat. How do you keep yourself like motivated to continue with content creation almost?
Well, the easiest way is to remember what you could be doing. Like I used to work two jobs at a CVS and a ShopRite, and working 16-hour days and just coming home to sleep and then getting back up to do it again. I mean, life could be worse than just watching a movie
Mm,
and give it your thoughts. As far as actual burnout, I would say try to go the complete opposite of what you've been doing. So if you've been watching, I don't know, The Godfather, watch a silly cornball comedy movie. Just see if you can't kind of wake yourself up, jar yourself out of it.
what about for wrestling? What do you do to avoid burnout there?
Oh, I just stop.
Ah,
Just
fair
stop
enough.
watching. I can just ignore it for a week. I mean, I only watch Dynamite. I don't have to, quote unquote, watch Dynamite. So I'll just stop. Stop for a
Mm.
week and come back and watch it again.
We talked about earlier in this conversation, but as we look at wrapping this up pretty soon, because I do want to be respectful of your time. Uh,
Sure.
we talked about that earlier in this conversation, how you might have seen SP3 change changed since you went to high school with him. But what is something you might have learned from him as a content creator?
That's a really good question. He is not afraid. I don't know if afraid is one word I want to use, but he's not afraid to put himself out there. He's a promoter and he is a collaborator and he is helpful to almost everybody I've seen him come into contact with. I am not that way. Not to be rude. I'm very much an introvert and he's very much an extrovert when it comes to these kind of things. So I think that's why his channel's grown, because he's just willing to keep pushing, essentially. He treats like a baby he's nurturing. And I appreciate that.
I know what you mean. You talked about before we do the final couple of segments, being an introvert in sort of, would you say your real life, but being sort of big in production when you're recording and stuff?
Yeah.
So,
I definitely can get I'm not sure the word for it. Animated. We'll go with that word. I can get quite animated.
So what do you do to sort of get yourself, I don't know if hype's the right word, but you know what I mean, right? To be like, okay, I'm in the zone to record, sort of thing.
This is going to be weird, but I've always, like, if anybody asked me to go out, let's say to the club or something, I would always fight it because I would rather be at home. But once I was out, I always liked being out. So that's kind of how this is, which I'd rather not deal with people. But as soon as I start dealing with them, I mean, I am having a good time. So maybe I'm not as much introverted as I am cautious. Maybe that's a better word. So I do enjoy talking to people. I like talking to you. I like talking to Sp3. I like talking to people who, when they comment, it's just, I enjoy it. Usually. I'll say usually.
It's just the build up by the sound of it.
Yeah. Yes. I think I might have a problem with authority. That might be what it is. I don't want to do something because I have to do it.
So as we look at wrapping this up, Jimmy, like I said, I do want to say thank you for a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this one. But we're going to do a segment that I call generic questions. Those of you that have seen my interviews before will know this, where I ask my guests their favorite match, favorite pay-per-view, favorite wrestler's theme, favorite tag team, and favorite wrestler of all time. But also for Jimmy, I'm going to add two more in, which is his favorite movie of all time and his favorite TV show of all time. Basically, questions that Jimmy might get asked on social media all the time. So now he'll have a place to be like, look, guys, I have answered this. Please go watch this. So what's your favorite wrestling match?
Favorite wrestling match of all time? I'm going to go with Austin versus Brett at WrestleMania 13. I love that match.
Why?
Favorite match of all time. Best match.
Why does that speak to you?
It was the violence of it all. As a Stone Cold fan, it's kind of the birth. A lot of people think it's the 316, but this is the actual, like, to the moon we go. I love that match so much. And Brett, to me, gets more underrated as time goes on. Everything he did felt real. It's like, I love Brett.
That's very cool. What about your favorite overall pay-per-view? And when I say pay-per-view, I mean like card, as in, like, for example, Double or Nothing 2019.
Oh, Forbidden Door is pretty good, actually. But I'm not gonna go with that. I'm gonna go old school. At least old school for me. I'm gonna go. Especially want to go WrestleMania 17 because it's the best WrestleMania ever. I'm actually gonna go with a month before that. I'm gonna go with No Way Out 2001.
Is that the one with the Triple H Austin 3 Stages of Hell?
Yes, it does. Oh, god damn, it's another great match. Another 5-star match Austin had. Terrible neck. Go ahead, Steve. I go with that one.
That's very cool. And then, what is your favorite wrestler's entrance?
Favorite wrestler's entrance music?
Yep.
Ooh. Currently or all time?
The dealer's choice on that one.
Okay. I'm going to go with the original NWO theme. That Rock House, that was called. I love that song. Like, as a song in and of itself, let alone for an entrance theme. It couldn't be more villainy if you said, "Here come the bad guys." It's just great. I love that song.
I think there's even a part, and that's very cool, but I think there's even a part in that song that you can hum. Here comes the bad guys, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
You probably could.
If I can remember correctly, yeah, there is. What about your actually, we'll do before we do the last two. We'll do the bonus ones that I've thrown in for you. Your favorite overall movie of the time.
Favorite overall movie? Ooh. I'm gonna go Pulp Fiction, only because I could pop it in right now and watch it.
Fair. Favorite overall TV show.
Oh, that's difficult. I don't want to say Breaking Bad or The Wire, so everybody says. I'm gonna Black Sails. You haven't seen Black Sails? Go watch Black Sails. So
What
Sean Stars.
what is it out of interest? Because I've never actually heard of that.
It's about a gang of pirates, not a gang, a couple gangs of pirates dealing with the end of piracy. Essentially, it's brilliant.
That sounds really cool. Before we do the final two, I have one more question, which is: would you consider yourself more of a TV or a movie guy?
Oh, TV. I love stories, and that's just a really long story. TV is mine. I love it.
Fair enough. And then for the final two wrestling generic questions, who is your favorite tag team of all time?
Favorite tag team of all time? Oh, that's a good one. I'm not gonna go that old school because it used to be Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. However, I'll be more recent. I'll go with the FTR.
So you gave me two answers there, Jimmy. Kinda. So what we do on this show when someone gives me two answers is we famously book this. If we are booking Tully and Arn versus FTR, where is it happening? Who's going over? What type of match is
it? 2 out of 3 falls. You've got to do it on Collision. You have to. Somewhere in the South. FTR goes over only because Tully Blanchard's daughter's awful. Sorry, Tully. So FTR goes over.
Fair enough. And then finally, as we wrap this up, Jimmy, who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Steve Austin. He's not the greatest wrestler ever. That's Ric Flair. My favorite wrestler ever is Austin, and it's probably not that close.
Fair enough. And then as we wrap this up, Jimmy, the question I end all my interviews on is, I believe as content creators, we're all sort of going to live forever with YouTube, podcasting, and social media. So what is one piece of content you want to be remembered for, and one that you're like, yuck, if the powers that be could forget about that, I would appreciate it.
Boy, some of those early AEW reviews are pretty rough because we didn't know what we were doing. So if we could forget about that, that'd be great. I like some of the later ones. I like some of the review stuff. I would probably say this comic book I'm writing. That counts as content, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, to me, it's definitely some of the best work I've done.
That's really cool. That's very cool. So as we wrap this up, Jimmy, where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
At jimmymacram.com is where you can find the comic book, both physical and digital editions. At True Heel Heat on YouTube, is where Sp3 and I do the AEW Dynamite reviews. Oh, if I can get to Collision, I'm making that move as soon as possible. And at Jimmy Macram on YouTube, where I watch TV and movies.
It's well worth doing, guys. So like I say, it's a lot lately, but one of probably the hardest working creators I've had the privilege of speaking to, but one of the nicest as well. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talk Trash on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talk Trash, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye now.